All right, this is the Kubernetes 1.7 retrospective. I just gave the working agreements that nobody heard because I wasn't pressing record. So welcome, and we're getting into the section now, which is follow-up from 1.6 retro. Thanks, Aaron, for letting me know we are not recording. So this was, there was a lot from the last retrospective, much more so than previous retrospectives. And in the past, we would go through these sort of item by item and talk about what we said we were going to do and why we did it. And basically, the plan was to, this time, leave these as items that we can look at asynchronously and hopefully just make comments in there. And I would ask that if you do put comments in there, as somebody has, just make them in red so that we know that they're from this retrospective and not necessarily from the prior retrospective. So just glancing through these, I want to comment that we did, I think, an incredibly good job. The release team did a fantastic job integrating a lot of these things. And as we were going through the process, that was something that that was really impressive to see. And I think that the feedback from the retrospective was kind of monitored through the process, which was great. This should be a living document. We should constantly be going back to this as we examine how we move through 1.8. So let's go on to what went well in 1.7. And it looks like Phil had some comments. He is not able to join us, unfortunately, because he's on PTO. But his comments were more testing in the past, which is true and fantastic. Relatively few severe issues days before the release. Agreed, that was really cool. And I think that if I can make a comment, my observation there was that wasn't an accident. There was a distinct push to make sure that SIGs were on top of all the issues, that the release was being very carefully curated. I think Don and company did a fantastic job making sure that was true. And that dovetails into my next point, which was my comment, which is the release team did a fantastic job. Thank you, everybody, on that. Lucas, do you want to mention yours?
My comment on the debs and RPMs, you mean?
Well, actually the EDE tests. I was just saying that you had put a comment there, and I wanted you to elaborate on that in the positives.
Okay. End-to-end tests for kubeadmin. But this time they were monitored, which was a great thing. Last time they were there, but not monitored. And that was great to see that we had decent coverage on kubeadmin as well. So we could stay on top of like the current state.
Great. Aaron, are those next 2 years?
Yeah.
Yes, they are. I know my avatar's really. So first, one personal experience was that I was more aware of when the submit queue was actively being debugged or troubleshot, because there was one place that I could go see this, which was the SIG release channel. And prior, I found I would have to bounce between the K8s release channel, Kubernetes demo channel, and I had suspicions there were a number of conversations internal to Google that I wasn't seeing. I still sometimes was under the impression that the SIG release channel didn't contain the full breadth and scope of discussion happening amongst the release team, but it did seem like early in the process we made a quick executive decision that all discussion about, hey, why isn't the submit queue flowing, should be punted to the SIG release channel. And everybody kind of picked up on that very quickly. I personally, once we made that decision, I didn't find I had to herd too many cats, and I didn't see a lot of stray discussion in the SIG channels that I lurk in. So I don't know how we did it, but we did a good job of communicating that decision. And I felt like I was able to more effectively stay on top of what was happening on a moment-to-moment basis. And then sort of in that same note of knowing what was happening, I had the wonderful experience of catching strep for a week in the release process. I do not recommend it. Like bright screens hurt. I couldn't see things for more than 5 minutes. I need to go and look at the notes from the burn down meeting, and I found they were the right level of detail. So they did a good job of capturing tangential discussions. I think they, don't get a concussion either. It's not a fun thing. I think the release notes did a good job of having a clear and consistent structure, so the meeting generally had the same format, even though sometimes the burn down meeting had a different theme on a day-by-day basis. But I still felt like I got a good high-level overview of where the release was at, as well as in-depth notes on what was discussed. And maybe it's just recency affecting me, but I felt like I was more able to grok what was going on in the 1.7 release than I have been in prior releases. I just wanted to really thank all the note takers for their efforts there.
Great. Thank you so much, Aaron. That's it for the things that are in the document for what went well. Anybody else want to call out appreciation or things that they appreciated about the process or things they thought went well? Okay, well, I can see people are eager to get into what maybe could have gone better, which I guess is a good thing because that's why we're here.
Yeah, I'll just echo real quick the relatively few severe issues days before the release. Again, anecdotally, I think we had way fewer issues. Upgrade tests were kind of the only big test failures, as they usually are, but no other major surprises that I was aware of, which I think is a massive accomplishment.
Hear, hear.
Okay, sorry.
No worries. So moving on to what could have gone better. Phil had a couple things. Release blocking tests running and passing throughout the release. Already have a dashboard with upgrade and SKU tests here. Need to get everything passing and stable. Need to take ownership of their tests and maintain health and the merge proposal. This seems relatively like commentary. I'm not sure that much could be done other than what is being done. So I'm going to move on to the next one, unless somebody wants to speak to that.
Yeah, I had one point I wanted to dovetail on there. We sort of had some tangential discussion about this on the pull request that's about the 1.8 release schedule. We'd really like to make sure that you do not cut an alpha unless all the blocking release tests are passing. That's sort of one of the gates or sticks we should use to make sure that this is enforced.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to move that down to what can we do next time? All right. Release notes pre-sorted by SIG component kind instead of manually sorted by engineers. Looks like there's a proposal for that in place. Anybody want to speak to that? Okay. Aaron, you're up. You've got the next 1, 2, 3 items.
Yeah, brain down. Okay, so I'm actually, I put this here sort of to actively solicit feedback from the release team. So I didn't go to the, when I went to the submit queue page to look at the submit queue's health, there is no longer a big red box that says submit queue blocked because we got rid of all of the blocking post-submit tests. That meant that the only reason a pull request wouldn't land into the submit queue was if all of the pre-submits didn't pass. So overall, I felt like that improved our velocity greatly. However, the thing that didn't go so well, at least from my perspective, was that it made it difficult for me to know really quickly when the submit queue was blocked because the pre-submits were consistently failing. So a good example might be when we ran out of subnet quota in a given Google project that affected one of the, I think it was the Federation pre-submit job, right? So the way that that manifested itself was the Federation jobs would start failing across a bunch of PRs. So I, as a human, would notice this if I was trying to triage PRs and I noticed that job kept failing. Or if I happened to be looking at the Prow page deck, and I could maybe like filter by job, I could see little red X's next to that over time. But I felt like that required a lot more active digging to notice that something was wrong. I don't know if anybody got alerted when pre-submits were blocked, not just because of flakiness, but because something was really actively wrong. How did the submit queue work for the release team? Like Don or who was the CI signal person? I'm really interested in your perspective.
I think that was Eric.
Yeah, go ahead, Don.
Yeah, this is change.
Hey, Don, we're getting really bad feedback somehow.
Sorry, we don't have the right people in the room, and we're using my laptop to do this. So.
I try to closer.
Oh, that's better. That's better. Yeah.
So we this time, yes, I feel the same pain because we don't have the strong signal. So we have to. So that's why when I realized the pre-submit queue and also whatever submit queue, could be the top one blocker for the release process or release quality of our making progress. So I have to pull the build couple into the release team and to identify goes to monitor all those potential issue. But those signal, the problem is the signal is the field. Is a lot of the red herring, a lot of false signal. So release team have to do the manual engineering work to look at it as what it is the right signal, what is bad signal. But it is, so we talked to the Ingepro, they agreed to bring back to the old, the red box, like the submit queue and the pre-submit queue, all those kind of block, those kind of things. And, but we still don't have the good workflow to how to, because even before those kind of things, it is have a lot of false arm and it is the block, the submit queue in a wrong way. So we are still trying to figure out, honestly, at this moment, I don't have the real good answer to how to improve. So we definitely don't want to just bring back the old way because that's give us a lot of blocking and further block the submit queue even worse because just one small problem and block every entire of the submit queue. But the current one also have a lot of problem because get a lot of flaky, the PR make the flakiness and into by accidentally merged, and also every engineer right now is kind of have no idea, and why my PR is get failed the flaky test all the time. All those kind of things. There's no clear signals where they can find those problems and the kind of status right now. Only for this release, we try to update. Like the daily, if there's a problem on the SIG release channel, but that's kind of, it is not automated. So all I can say it is we keep improve and find a better solution. But at this moment, for this particular problem, I don't have the good solution.
Okay. In the interest of time, I'll try and move a little bit more quickly. But to summarize what I heard, I agree with you, Don. Like I think. So what I was asking, like, it sounds like we agree, it feels like our velocity was faster this time, but we have slightly more uncertainty about when the submit queue is blocked now, because sometimes pre-submits failing are valid. Other times, a bunch of pre-submits failing in a row is because there is a real testing for the chance. Right now requires active effort to figure out the difference. So I think we can talk about that more. So what should we do about that next? Okay, so this is somewhat tied to Phil's proposal about release notes, but I felt like there was no clear owner for the release notes process on the release team. It wasn't owned by the doc person. It may have been owned by Ihor as the feature, but this is not explicitly spelled out in the release team charter. So this is something we should either have a separate role for or make sure it's a responsibility of somebody. Next thing. So I personally did not get a lot of value out of the requirement that every PR must be linked to an issue. I found it to be an extra level of administrivia. I found there was a lot of confusion. It required engineering to do the /approve no issue. Today, I don't know if it's still a requirement for ongoing development or if that's a requirement we only have flipped on when it's stuck down. I don't think it was specified in a manner adequate for machine consumption. So we didn't actually have a tool that could go through and use all of these links to easily. We need to have something a little more rigidly specified that can be machine validated if that's the path we'd like to go. I personally, as a human, didn't get additional context by being able to link from a PR to an issue. Usually the PR itself provided enough context for me to understand why somebody was trying to stuff this into the release at the last minute. But again, I would be curious to hear if other folks got stuff out of that. Okay, that's all I have. Next one was Phil, so I'll hand it back off to Jason for that one.
Can I add one thing for the per PR per issue proposal? Because we started so late, and also there's some of the effort is being paused by, because we didn't have the owner to implement those kind of the automated Bob. And so initially we want it is because you have the per PR per issue, and each issue be owned by the and also component. That's the like original proposal. So then you can have the auto tool to generate that the first version of the release notes. So you are shoot by the category by issue and the issue owned by the SIG group, and then you have the accumulative PR. And then you have the human engineer provide release notes associated with those kind of things if required. So all those kind of things, and also you can indicate that's issue, that's the feature, or it is the, and also it is the feature, or it is the bug fix owned by different of the. So, but we are missing those all the Bob to auto generate those kind of things, and also we got a lot of pushback because I think it's just because we proposed it so late. So people think about for this release. So I'm going to talk to the SIG PM next Tuesday about this, have the feature of this proposal and how we are going to build what kind of tools we needed and how this is can auto-generate first version of the release notes. So and categorized by the component and also the groups, SIG groups. Just if you notice that this time release notes and we release team actually at the end on the entire of the release notes, and Ihor is the lead, and the Collab actually is another lead. So we are actually, it is manually short by the component, short by area, and also SIG groups for this one. So if we have the if we push it this time, insisted and from the beginning, and doing per PR per issue, and also each issue owned by the area and also SIG group, then we can auto-generate instead release team to do the manual work. Like we spend, I think Clive and I spend more than 5 hours that afternoon, and then the rest of works like the Garrett, Phil, and also Chow, we spend like another 3 hours on those release notes. That's what I want to say. Yeah. I want to propose that one and then make sure this it is being go to next stage.
I have so many more release notes related things, but I don't want to go off script out of respect for people who've added stuff to the doc. Jason, if it's cool with you, I'm just going to read Phil's thing.
Yeah. So actually, can I add one thing?
Yeah,
this is
the release notes.
Oh, what was that, Ihor? I'm sorry.
It's Ihor, yeah, probably some lag. Yeah, so I'd like to comment on the release notes. Yeah, absolutely, I totally agree with the proposal to have like some specified role for the release notes. So we at least have to define a set of people who will be responsible for that. Myself, as a features lead for this release, have been responsible for the release notes, but mostly for the release notes and part of the features. At the same time, as Don mentioned, we had like two major parts of the release notes. We had features and we had bug fixes and some other enhancements that haven't been included into the release into the features process. So for the features part, we have features in the release notes that have been already included into the features report, that have been tracked on the spreadsheet, and we have included the comments from the feature owners that have been described in the spreadsheet based on their feedback on the features report, where we have asked all the feature owners to provide 1 or 2 lines that will describe this feature the most. So how the end users will benefit from having this issue. The second part is about the bug fixes and some not so notable enhancements, but still these PRs have to be included in the release notes. So before we'll start working on the release notes in 1.8, I would propose to define the final structure, like the template, how our release notes should look like. Where do we have the major themes? Where do we have any calls to action, like we had several calls to action for people like before they will upgrade to 1.7. Where and what will we have in the features part? What will we have in the different parts of the release notes? That's all from me.
Great, Ihor. I added in the to-do release notes template. So for SIG release, we can look into that. I was going to say before,
I'd like to I'd like to join forces of SIG PM and SIG release about it. So as Don mentioned, should like join SIG PM meeting. So I suppose we have like defined some time in a week to discuss jointly with SIG PM and SIG release how can we make this process better, and probably SIG contributes into also automating that.
May I also add something on the release note?
Yes.
Hi, this is Chao. So if the SIG release team nail down the template of the changelog, I think we should create issues on the Anago repo. That's a Kubernetes.io/release repo, because that's the tool we used to create to put together all the release notes into a changelog. And it has some templates on how to the changelog, and the template I think is decided. It was decided last release, so it's very stale. And in the 1.7 release, we actually have to manually up to the output of Anago, so that's very not handy. I have another comment on release on the changelog, is that maybe we should split the mono changelog into multiple small ones, because currently the changelog includes everything since 1.0, and it's difficult for user to browse. It's also difficult for us to manually change it. That's my 2 points.
Great, thank you. I added that to the bottom of the what could we do differently, which is break changelog into smaller pieces. All right, let's see. So Phil had another issue about issues targeted to milestone auto-managed by a bot instead of manually merged by humans. Yes, and there's a merge proposal there. Aaron, you had a couple other things. Do you want to summarize those real quick, or do you want to move on?
I'll summarize those real quick. So Don sort of alluded to it earlier, but I felt like that our change of making sure that PRs were tied to issues was made late in the release process. It was announced 1 week prior to code freeze. It reached a deadline past which there are no changes to the release process. We have a code freeze in place. It seems like it would be great to have a process freeze. Now, I recognize there is a need to adapt and change to situations, but I feel like locking the rules in place would potentially help alleviate this situation. Release team is trying to figure out how do we do the release from scratch every time. I know that there is a SIG release, and that the release team is supposed to be staffed by more or less the same group of people means we have hopefully some more situational awareness that carries from release to release. But if we have new, fresh ideas, now is absolutely the time to call them out and get them implemented. August 1st is likely too late. But that's just, I'm thinking to next thing, and this is kind of related to Phil's thing. It's still way too easy for humans to sneak things into the release at the last second. I think having a bot be a jerk is maybe a little bit more socially acceptable than having a human be a jerk. Because I know sometimes people just really want to slip this one thing in there, and don't worry, it's fine, because like the code's mostly done, right? I know I didn't actually follow the process and the rules, but it's all done already, right? Can't I just slip in? It's easier if a bot says no, right? I'm not going to call people out, but I'll just say, like, I did notice there were things added into the 1.7 milestone and the features repo when they really should not have been, well after deadlines were announced. Okay, I think that is it from me. And like I said, I'll have more to say about release notes when it comes to what can we do different. With that, I will hand off to Lucas for his next comments.
Yeah, okay, so just one like minor thing which I noticed. Here in Finland, which is GMT +2, and I think Ukraine is maybe the same. The burn down meetings were 11 p.m. So I was just thinking if it would be possible for future releases to be 9 a.m. ET. That would be like at least a little bit easier to make in that case for Europeans.
I know someone's leaking into, so that's why I want to leave the code.
Don, can you guys mute real fast? Sorry,
sorry. I would second Lucas on that. So for me personally, it wasn't a big problem to join burn-down meetings at the late time, but I'm not the only representative for Kubernetes community from Europe, and we have lots of people in Central Europe and Eastern Europe. So I suppose that the attendance for other people who are in Europe, it will be much better for them to have burn-down meetings in like more European-friendly time.
Just so that we can get like the release team from Europe as well.
Great, it's in the to-dos. Lucas, you have one more or two more items to cover?
Yeah, quickly. So yeah, about the release notes as well. So we maybe could have used a little more time before switching from the Google Doc to the like Markdown version, but we already touched this very well with automating and doing it ahead of well ahead of time instead of having it some days before the release. So I think it was covered already. One minor thing, and it's a question at the same time, and when the code freeze was 1st June or something, a lot of features were LGTM'd, but they were all like stuffed into they were LGTM'd that day when the release branch was made, and that resulted in us having a 1.8 alpha 0, which didn't have like it had maybe 70% of the features. A lot of like the initializers thing, the admission controller were still missing, and some other things. So it resulted in a lot of like from an installation provider like kubeadmin perspective, it resulted in a lot of weird behavior because the like latest release where the 1.8 alpha thing features in it. So I was thinking, is there any practical reason why we do an 1.8 alpha at the same time of when code freeze is cut and when code freeze is applied and the branch is cut, or could we do it in the RC1 instead?
I think that's a great question. Do you mind, in the interest of time, if we parking lot that for the moment, and then we go to that if we have time at the end? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, I'm going to put that in the parking lot. And then you had, I believe, one more thing. Is that right, or is that Cesar? Let's see. No, it was Cesar.
Oh, that's me. Ciao.
Okay, ciao. Sorry, ciao.
Yeah, that's my GitHub ID.
Oh, okay.
So serving as the release branch manager, I find it's there's no clear documentation on what I should do, what's my responsibility. And I think maybe, I don't know if the other member in the release team feels the same way, but I remember it's Don who assigned each of us a specific responsibility when we do beta 2. And after that, we know what we should do. So I think there should be more detailed instructions on what each member in the release team should do. So I have this playbook for the release branch manager I wrote it in the chronicle order, what I did at different phase of the release. I know Anthony also wrote one for the patch release manager. I feel it will be useful if we wrote more such docs.
Well, to be honest, we have some documentation for the release members, for the members of the release team. The documentation has been prepared at the period of time where the concept of release team has been established. It was at the beginning of the year. But it seems that the current moment the documentation is hidden somewhere and it's not so easy for people to find it. I suppose that we have to enhance that with our current experience working on 2 releases as the release teams and push it somewhere on a more visible place.
Yeah, I saw some description on each. I think.
Yeah, there has been a Google Doc from, as far as I remember, but again, I'm not sure that it's placed somewhere on GitHub on the visible place.
Yeah, so someone sent the link.
Yeah, there's a link now.
Yeah, but that's out, but it's very terse and it's not clear what I should do at different time.
There's a couple issue. One issue is the release process keep changing, and another problem it is also even the monitoring tool test grid also keep changing, and another one it is the earlier defined doc. It is pretty high level, and the engineer don't know not just Chow have this problem. Actually, Maju or the bug triage lead, and also Eric, our test lead, they all have this kind of same issue. They came to me say they don't know what they should do, and just monitor tests. There are so many tests grid to monitor. What we should monitor. So that's why, and also each different stage, code freeze, before code freeze, after code freeze, and also lift code freeze. Each job, each role in the release team, what it is they should monitor, what kind of the action they should do. So it is kind of every stage we have to define. So I kind of have to, along this whole release process, and I have to define to people's what kind of the things, metrics they should do, what kind of signal they should generate, what kind of the bills they should monitor. So I think I'm going to update after this meeting. I'm going to update this doc and have the more clear define what we should do and what kind of action, so the release team can do better job on those kind of things. So everyone know what kind of signal they should monitor. For child, particularly, how often we require he do the batch cherry pick. Those kind of things is unclear. But a lot of interactive with other people, for example, upgrade test, for example, to test the kube admin. All those kind of things, actually, you need a single hardware to predefine those things.
Great. Yeah, so I put you as a to-do item, Don, to update the release roles document. And I would love to see you specifically as the release lead put down your sort of the release lead roles as well, because that's a really challenging position is to handle.
So I think there might be two action items. One is to get a little more clear in the general roles and what those responsibilities entail. But the other is what Chao was calling attention to, which is the activities that each one of those roles goes through. And I think that playbook concept is really helpful for future civilizations who come along and have to take on this responsibility. So maybe the second action item is to at least build out a playbook that can be a living document from release to release as part of ceremony.
Yeah, and
Chao build one, and also the build cup. Also, one of the build cup, I also asked him to build one playbook so we can hand over to the next release team.
The Chao, I think you need to open
will.
up the permissions on your playbook. Also, yeah, the branch manager is particularly poorly documented because it's a role that's only been held by Googlers.
Anthony also
So,
wrote a very book for the batch release manager. I'll ask him to share.
Right, but no one outside of Google has gone through the process of being the branch manager. So that's one of the areas that's been lacking in terms of its documentation, just because there's been fewer people who have done it. So it's been tribal knowledge from Anthony and then from Phil and Saad for him.
Okay, I put down the release playbooks as something that we need to look at, and we can use the things that have already been developed as a starting point. So, thank you, Chao, for documenting that, and it's greatly appreciated. Moving forward, let's see. It looks like Bob.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So I wanted to make sure that all your guys' work and the stuff that happens here actually is strategized and presented well to the community and the press and the rest of the world. So just trying to find a more formal process instead of just throwing stuff out over the wall is how can we make sure we have a strategy of when timings happen so we can have the press aligned, we can have the blog posts aligned, and just sort of a cohesive message moving forward. And I just want to work cross-team, and I don't know if there's a process of getting sort of the comms team, marketing team to sort of have a formal seat so we can be as part of this. But yeah, I don't have the specific solution, but I know Don has some strong thoughts about how to make this more productive for all of us. But you all have been doing a lot of great work, and it'll be a shame to just push alive without having a strategy that's more impactful.
So I think an obvious question that we want to get into after that is, should that be another release role as the marketing communications manager role, or lead? Because somebody should probably be tasked with that. Any appetite for that?
Okay, I can't help it. So this is kind of related to Caleb and Chao's things up front as well. It is my opinion that by the time we hit feature freeze, so where we have decided what features are actually going into Kubernetes, we have enough information to say what our marketing plan is for Kubernetes. We have enough information to draft a quick blog level summary of what's actually in the beta or what's going to be in the beta for Kubernetes at this next release of Kubernetes. Well, because X is going to be added, or Y is going to be made better, or you can get ready for Z to go away. So if you're trying to manage risk, you can prepare for that ahead of time. All of this information should be known about a month from now.
Yes,
roughly speaking.
I think that's correct. And I think that so far, PMSig has been writing the blog post, and I think we can do that a month in advance. But we're not looking at the marketing plan and the PR plan and so forth. I mean, I think the blog post can be ready, but then what happens to it?
So what I was going to suggest is that at the moment, our release schedule only really calls out code as deliverable artifacts that are due by a certain time. Oh, also docs. They're thrown in there somewhere, but don't worry, those will get written in tech review, and it's fine. I think that marketing plan could be an artifact, and more explicit definition of release note artifacts and documentation artifact, the same sorts and milestone that we do for code, should be spelled out more explicitly in our release schedule. To that end, I've made comments as such on the pull request for the 1.8 release schedule.
I support that, and I'll be the first volunteer to help drive that.
Yeah, I support that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, count me in this. I suppose that we can start working on that as the SIG PM to be the single and the main point where that will coordinate these efforts with the marketing teams of CNCF and Kubernetes itself.
So this somewhat goes back to my earlier comment that it doesn't seem like, sorry, I must have said this when you weren't around, or it seemed to me like release notes and the shepherding of them and the herding of cats and the communication and aligning with marketing and what didn't seem to be a responsibility that was owned by any specific role on the release team. So it does seem like perhaps that is where either representative marketing or PM probably has the most alignment. And I leave it to you to define whether or not that's owned by an existing role of the release team or a new role should be created. But I believe that role as much as the rest of the roles do. Right.
Well, speaking about 1.7, I've been a person who has been responsible for the features, and I've been closely interacting with Aparna, with Pop, and with CNCF marketing. So,
yes, but I think that the point is valid. We haven't had a marketing plan or marketing role on the release team. SIGPM has done what we've done previously, which is track the features, create visibility, and then, like you said, write the blog. And I think one thing we can do is we can write it earlier. But then I'm not sure that we have the capability to take on the marketing piece. I'm not sure that I think it makes sense potentially to have that as part of the release team.
I think
from this perspective.
a couple of things I think we can enhance from this release based on what I observed. So one thing it is at the later stage, like the SIG PM can write the blog as early as possible. We have some signal, but the problem it is at during the last stage, we also change something. Like the certain feature, it is by default on, and during the stage, we think that it is really risk and it's wrong. So we did make that is opt-in feature. So it is a change a lot of things, and. But the problem it is, I think we need to have the representative from the marketing. And in the release, they can participate like after code phrase or feature phrase. So then involve with kind of, I think Eho actually did a good job, but we don't have the real explicit set timeline when we are going to finish a blog, when we should start the release notes. If I remember correctly, and 2 weeks before our release, I asked in the burn down meeting, I said we should kick out our release notes process. Everyone said, no, that's too earlier. And I clearly remember that nobody in that burn down meeting.
That's when I had struck. Otherwise, I would have been a lot more.
And then people say, oh, based on past experience, we're far away from that one. And I said, but we should kick out the release notes process. So now, and then I said, okay, then come back to next week. And differently discussing. So then next week, I asked, people still think of it's too earlier. And even for the first release candidate, then I have to say, no matter what, let's cut the release candidate. Then we can do the better integration.
So I think the ask here isn't to be like 100% certain about a single thing that's going to go into V1.8 by August 1st, because that's still 2 months actually getting cut. Feature freeze is August 1st, code freeze is September 1st, assuming that's the schedule everybody's okay with when that PR gets merged. About defining the cone of uncertainty that gradually narrows down as we get to the release, and being able to spell that out as a role that owns concrete deliverables through the schedule. So I think that's cool. Second thing, and then I swear I'll stop rambling because Caleb and Chow made good points about this. I am of the opinion that while I laud all of your hard efforts to go through all of the changelog entries, I wish you hadn't done that. that was a train I would have tried to stop had I had more time, because I don't think that content is interesting or necessary. I think it made the changelog a lot longer than it needed to be. I feel like it was a duplication of the changelog entries that came before, because they're like all of those one-line entries and references to all of those PRs happen in alphas and betas. Really, the release notes are meant to highlight, from a marketing perspective, the themes and features of the release. From an operator's perspective, the element of least surprise. Can I still run all of my old apps on this new version of Kubernetes? Are there things that I used to depend upon that are going away? Are there really awesome new features that I can enable with this flag or that? It kind of made me a little sad to see every SIG go line by line through everything in the changelog. That seemed like too much effort for a lot of content that, as a user, it's difficult to quickly scan through and figure out what I'm interested in. It's this weird balance between, I know a lot of people did a lot of work and we want to brag about it, but I still think a single cohesive voice that starts early on with the themes and features of the release, and as we go through testing, we begin to realize the operational realities of how this new release works. Like that's the level of detail that I think we're looking for. Going line by line through every changelog entry doesn't provide that. That's just my opinion.
With you from high level, I think those like the basic group and the SIG component, those kind of things, area components should be auto-generated, and the marketing people and document people can, based on that, report and to generate useful release notes to the user. Right now, it is kind of still is the generate the release change log for developer. For the each SIG group, it's not really for the user. So I like what we have done, like for the first 2 page for this release. Honestly, I like what action item, what kind of this deprecation. That's more from the user perspective. The rest of the stuff we kind of like manual doing those kinds. I also feel sorry for people involved, including myself, to hold the process. That's the waste of our time. But since we already kick out that one, people already doing that. So like the note, because I don't want to mix the signal for the release notes, so we have to finish it. So which is, I really appreciate that one, and I also feel sorry to doing those things because that's kind of like delay our release for a couple hours, literally. So I have to make sure, I promise, make sure that day, Thursday release, so I have to make sure that when before 11:59 p.m. we have to kick off that release. And I hope those kind of generate auto report based on the developer change log, whatever release notes in the future. Then the other people, like the real like document people or like the marketing people, can help to generate more user-friendly release notes. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Caleb, Chow, you guys want to?
Yeah, Caleb.
Those comments.
Caleb and Chow, you're going to round it out. And just to be mindful, we have 7 minutes left. And the what will we do differently? It looks like, Caleb, you've got a couple items in there. So Chow, do you want to go first and then hand it off to Caleb?
Sorry, we were muted. Go ahead, Chow, again.
That part has already been discussed.
Okay. Great. Then Caleb, it's all yours.
Yeah, I guess my thing was about, well, one was about better, can we front load the release note creation? We talked about that a bit. I think two, Don and Aaron's point about the policies for the release process changing, I think it's kind of difficult because we don't have any kind of like retooling or regrouping period between releases. So there's no like good time to like think about, like to take all these action items and to like put our heads together and say that we want to be doing X in the next release, and then get some of that tooling in place before people start working on it.
What if we just made that part of the feature process also? Like there's a feature freeze on first. What if process changes have to be part of that freeze also?
It's possible, although that the process is like almost, it's kind of a meta thing, right? So you may be changing how PRs get merged in the submit queue. You don't want to do that like before PRs start landing for that release, which happens before feature freeze, ideally in the perfect world, right? So I feel like it needs to be somewhat separate from the main coding, development, documentation, marketing cycle, especially for things like test infra, where we didn't see any it was super smooth for 1.7, but there were changes 1.6 that caused some instability with submit queue. And so getting those changes rolled out before the submit queue is critical is nice, would be nice as well. That's probably all I need to say about that.
I also want to echo what Caleb said. This time, actually, also test infrastructure made a lot of change. A lot of change is driven by the release team, which is what we want. So I won't complain. But a lot of change also it is driven by other purpose and our submit queue, and also cause a lot of test infrastructure flakiness and problem. So we also need to have the separate the release, whatever the infrastructure change phrase for release, we also, this is kind of need to talk to separate discuss with the contrib and also ng pro team. And we should have once we have the late of the release cycle and stop have the new feature for the test infrastructure and exact the new test added or something like that. So that's because this time also caused a lot of trouble. So I have to literally go talk to the ng pro team and say, oh, please don't give me any new feature. And don't, but that's not sustained. We need explicit say, here's the timeline, here's the freeze.
So Don, if I heard you right, we basically need to have an infrastructure freeze as well as the code freeze, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Another thing I want to add, I think this is going to be even more dangerous if we don't have this one. So we break a lot of the repository, right? So in the long run, we are going to have the more things to the different repository. Integration is such hard. Many people I'm observer for the past release already have this kind of problem. Like the hipster last minutes have said, oh, I have the 1.9 change because I upgrade hipster to the new version. I just random pick up hipster, right? Because hipster is in separate repo. It's not mean they management bag. But hipster could be, and they're auto scaling, there's the cube admin, all those kind of things could be, and in a different time, really last minute, they say, oh, I have the new PR, I change my one flag. So if you are not really stay very close to this product, you maybe think about that's really, really easy. That's just 1.9 change. No, that's kind of behind that 1.9, maybe because it is just one image version. Behind that, maybe have the thousands of the change, the dangerous. We have the clearness, even the theory is cross entire of the Kubernetes community. It's not just main repo. This kind of problem bite us many times for many release, and even this release. So I have to literally talk to each owner. They just keep saying, oh, we are in a separate repo, so we are not affected. I said, sorry, but you are affecting the quality of this release. So can we just, so a lot of things, but we need to have the clearness, even those kind of things. Release, the code freeze should be timeline applied to all the repo, not just for the main repo. That's just what I want to say.
Thanks, Don. So we've got exactly 1 minute left. I want to respect everybody's time. Caleb, do you have one last thing to add real quick?
No, it's okay.
Okay. All right.
I had a question around follow-up or next steps. I feel like I personally would like to have more of a discussion around what we do now and assigning people these action items. Would SIG release be the appropriate forum? If so, SIG release is currently scheduled bi-weekly. It was originally scheduled weekly. Would we like SIG release to go back to weekly? If not, would we like to have another retro meeting?
Caleb.
I personally can't do weekly in my schedule. And without Phil, I don't want to speak for him. I would be open to having another retro. I would also be fine scheduling a one-off SIG release meeting since we had one missed because of the holiday. We could follow up in the Slack channel if you'd like, since we're at time.
Okay, yeah, so just...
But either of those sound good to me.
All right, so if you're in this retro right now and you're interested in what happens, either a follow-up retro or the SIG release, please watch the SIG release Slack channel because that's where the official notice for this will come. So I'll also make a note at the community meeting next week, and we'll go from there. Thank you so much, everybody, for your precious time. Best community ever.
Thanks so much for facilitating, Jace.
Glad to do it. Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.